What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today, we're going to be breaking down the opening moves made by the New England Patriots after the first week of free agency. Let's get right into it, starting off with possibly the biggest signing of the offseason thus far for the Patriots, that being wide receiver Romeo Doubs, of course, former Green Bay Packer, on a 4-year, $80 million contract with around 68 to 70 of that $80 million in guaranteed money there. And as of right now, this is your wide receiver one. This is your Stephon Diggs replacement. I'll talk about Diggs' departure a little later, but this is the guy who's going to be filling into that Stephon Diggs role. And I think that he has the chance to be more productive than Stephon Diggs just because he adds another element to his game that Stephon Diggs really didn't bring to the Patriots, but I'll get into that a little bit later. According to PFF, his 2025 grades, he had a total offensive grade of 74.6, a receiving grade of 77.3, and a run block grade of 33.5. He was targeted 94 times, came up with 63 receptions for around a reception rate of 67%, 848 yards, 7 receiving touchdowns. His average depth of target was around 13 yards, so he was really nice working that intermediate type route, which was very favorable in the Josh McDaniels offense last year. He averaged around 3.3 yak yards per reception, a 1.86 yards per route run, a 13 of 30 contested catch rate for around a 43%, and he only had 4 drops on the year for around a 6% drop rate. And as I kind of alluded to before, he's supposed to be the Stephon Diggs replacement for this offense as of right now, kind of stepping up as that number one guy or the anticipated number one guy. And the reason why I like Doubs in this role is because he has the ability to win on the outside as well as on the inside, but he can play the boundaries and win outside the numbers. And according to his snaps by alignment in Green Bay, he took 708 snaps out wide compared to only 115 in the slot. And as we saw with Stephon Diggs last year, he really had kind of lost that explosiveness or that ability to win that one-on-one ball on the outside. And he was really strictly a guy who was going to work over the middle of the field and try and win that one-on-one coverage through these shorter routes and kind of win through yak yardage, where Romeo Doubs, for instance, is going to be able to win these contested catch type scenarios, work the deep parts of the field, and his route tree is not going to be more so limited to only outside the number type throws, but also inside, as well as just opens up more dimensions for this offense. And we saw how much Drake May likes to throw that deep ball, and the ability that Romeo Doubs is going to bring in the deep ball receiving game is certainly going to help out this offense. And you can even see that in his receiving depth targets. So taking a look at this, these numbers are going to be a little bit difficult to follow, but his behind the line of scrimmage yardage was only 4 yards, 2 receptions on 2 targets, and that was where he got targeted 2.1% of his catches. In the short area, it was 42% of his targets. He had 40 targets for 33 receptions, 250 yards, and 4 touchdowns. In the intermediate game, which is so crucial to this Josh McDaniels offense, which is 10 to 19 yards, he hauled in around 36% of his catches. He was targeted 34 times for 19 receptions, 301 yards, averaged around 15.8 yards per reception when targeted in this area, and came down with 2 touchdowns. And then the deep ball, of course, 20-plus yards, was around 19% of his catches, 18 targets, 9 receptions, 293 yards, 32.6 yards per reception in that category, as well as a touchdown. So you really see that he can not only win his route in the short game, however, he could also take the ball deep, as well as in the intermediate part of the field, and could certainly add more explosive plays to this offense. Think of Kayshon Boutte on steroids a little bit here. Maybe not as efficient as Kayshon was in the deep portions of the field, but certainly someone who can also bring that element. And when you have 2 guys who can consistently win on the outside, like Kayshon Boutte and Romeo Doubs hopefully will in New England, that's only going to benefit Drake May and his ability to really throw that deep ball. And this offense really thrived in explosive plays last year, and that was something that was really missing in the playoffs just because of how defenses were going to play them. So the more firepower that you can get and the more ability to hit on those deep ball type plays that Drake May likes to take advantage of, it's only going to help this offense even more. And Romeo Doubs is filling in as your number one right now, but hopefully he becomes a high-end 2 if you're able to kind of snag a true number 1 receiver right here. But according to PFF, he was ranked by a top 30 wide receiver in 2025 as I said before, really a low-end one, high-end number two. For very serviceable money, when you're talking about paying a guy 17 to 18 million to be a very good wide receiver for you in today's NFL, 18 to 17 million in guaranteed money is not a big deal whatsoever. And hopefully he hits the majority of his incentives, that meaning the contract goes up to 80 million. And that's going to mean he's balling for you. But you get him through his prime. He's 25 right now or 26. You're going to either sign him through his 25 through 29 season or his 26 through 30 season. So that's really going to be his prime. And especially coming off his most efficient year in Green Bay and playing into an offense that really looks to take advantage of his strengths, I think that Romeo Doubs is a very good signing for a very solid contract in multiple years here. So hopefully Romeo Doubs is going to grow into one of these stable receivers who can stay in New England for a long time. Moving on to the next addition, the New England Patriots signed former Jets guard Elijah Vera-Tucker on a 3-year, $42 million contract, with around 17 to 21 of that $42 million being in guaranteed money. And this is a very risky signing for the Patriots. However, if it hits, you're getting one of the better guards in the league. And he's going to be playing a little bit out of position. He has been playing right guard for the Jets these past couple seasons. However, he has had some past play time at the left guard position where you presume he's probably going to fit in with the Patriots offensive line. But when you read out Will Campbell, Elijah Vera-Tucker, presumably Jared Wilson at center, Mike Onwenu and Morgan Moses at right tackle, that's a pretty serviceable offensive line, and it's hopefully going to have a lot of improvements compared to last season's offensive line and getting some more experience on that left side compared to the immaturity that you had last year. And moving Jared Wilson back to his college position of center hopefully is going to help him play better compared to where he played left guard last season. But taking a look at Elijah Vera-Tucker, the last full season he played was 2024, as I said before, the right guard position for the Jets. He had an offensive grade of 77.7, a pass block rate of 74.5, and a run block rate of 76.3. He took 916 snaps, only allowed 4 sacks, 4 QB hits, 8 hurries, 16 pressures. He had a pass block efficiency grade of 98.8%. So extremely valuable in the pass protection game. And according to Next Gen Stats, he's actually a top 10 guard in terms of pass block true sets from both sides. So if this contract hits, it's only going to add another pass protector for Drake May, which is going to allow for him to hold the ball and hit on some of those deep ball shots there. But in the run game specifically, playing with the Jets, he played more so a zone blocking scheme compared to a gap scheme, where he was really taking around 59% of the running plays in terms of zone blocking compared to only 38% in gap blocking. So Josh McDaniels tends to run a little bit more gap. However, with Trayvon Henderson on the field, there's a lot more of those stretch plays, a lot more of those outside pitches. So you're going to see some more zone blocking there. And Elijah Vera-Tucker is a pretty mobile guard for his size. So expect him to get out in front on some of these blocks there. But taking a look at his 2021 season was actually the last time he played left guard. I believe it was actually his rookie season. He had an offensive grade of 66.8, a pass block grade of 56.9, and a run block grade of 72.5. I would expect those numbers to go up just because he's more mature, probably gained some more weight, and has a lot more experience under his belt there. But overall on the signing, I do think it is a rather risky signing considering the fact that he's had 3 season-ending injuries in his 5 seasons thus far. So he's certainly someone with a very complicated injury history. However, when he is on the field, he performs like a top 10 guard, and that's only going to help Will Campbell and Jared Wilson, especially considering the fact that they both at times struggled last year. And not having a rookie guard next to him is certainly going to help Will Campbell. And of course, with this signing, that means that you're keeping Will Campbell at the tackle position. So you could put away all those fears of moving him inside to the guard and saying that you used the 4th overall pick on a guard. And hopefully Will Campbell is going to be able to work out at tackle because they're going to have a logjam at guard if this does not go through and Will Campbell needs to be moved to the inside. But as I said before, this signing is only going to help the Patriots in both the run game and the passing game, hopefully with a more stable offensive line or less immaturity on that left side. They're going to have better performance from Will Campbell at that left tackle position. And of course, Elijah Vera-Tucker, when he's on the field, his performance really speaks for himself. So I do like the signing. However, this has a big time potential backfire move considering the fact that he has had a ton of injury history for the Patriots. So you got to hope that Elijah Vera-Tucker stays healthy for you, because you're now exposing your left side of the line even more if he does go down. The next signing we're going to be talking about is tight end Julian Hill, former Miami Dolphin, to a 3-year, $15 million contract, with around $7.5 of that $15 million being in guaranteed money. Julian Hill really has been someone who has not seen a ton of time on the field, so the Patriots are really hoping to unlock a little bit of upside out of this tight end. And under the Mike McDaniel system, he was really more so used as a blocking tight end. And even taking a look at some of his grades here, he wasn't even that good at that. So I do think that this might be a little bit of an overpay. However, if the Patriots are this confident to sign a tight end this early, especially with the depth concerns that they have at that position, I'm sure that they do have a plan, and hopefully they can unlock something out of Julian Hill here. But taking a look at his 2025 offensive grades, he had a total offensive grade of 53.7, pass block grade of 66.8, a run block grade of 49.8, and a receiving grade of 56.1. He took 299 blocking snaps compared to 133 receiver snaps. And during those receiving snaps, he had 19 targets for 15 receptions, 140 yards for an average depth of target of around 4 yards down the field, 7.5 yak yardage per reception, and he did have a drop. And this is a versatile tight end who could line up in a lot of positions. And we saw with Mike McDaniel's offense for multiple years, a little bit of that kooky offense, putting guys in different spots, a lot of motions. And taking a look by his snaps by alignment here really does speak to his versatility. He was on the inline 310 times. That's where he played the majority of his snaps. However, he was in the slot 63 times. He was in the backfield for 53 snaps, and he was out wide for 15. So Mike McDaniels liked to use him in a lot of different formations and put him in different type of spots. So hopefully it's something that Josh McDaniels can kind of recreate and put Julian Hill in the best position possible to have a little bit of a breakout season here. But he's really added as this guy who's supposed to be this blocking tight end, or at least that's where he was mostly used in Miami. And his run block grade wasn't even that good. So hopefully the Patriots are able to coach him up a little bit in that area, or maybe he just performs better in New England. But if this does hit, it's certainly going to help the Patriots in the run game. And that's where I would expect that this move really is going to help the Patriots the most. And I really see this more so as kind of a blocking tight end depth piece, maybe a tight end 2, potential tight end 3, based on what you do in the draft, because, of course, Austin Hooper has now departed to the Falcons. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here with the Patriots and the rest of the tight end room. But that brings us to our last offensive signing thus far of free agency, which was fullback Reggie Gilliam, former Buffalo Bill, on a 3-year, $12 million contract, with $6 million of that $12 million being in guaranteed money. And I think there's actually an opt-out for either party in the third year. But I really do like this signing for the Patriots. Of course, we know how much Josh McDaniels likes to rely on that fullback position. And last year, the Patriots were really relying on Jack Westover to be their kind of fullback in that spot. And even times where there was Kyrus Tonga coming in that kind of jumbo package. But signing a very productive fullback here in Reggie Gilliam, someone who played in Buffalo for 6 seasons, was very solid, and actually coming off probably his best season in terms of his blocking credentials is certainly going to help out this offense, especially the run game. And this is only going to allow for Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson to have more improved blocking in front of them. And it really kind of keys into what Josh McDaniels likes to do in the run game with some of those power formations and running that ball right between the tackles. But taking a look at the offensive grades for Gilliam on the 2025 season, he had an offensive grade of 72.4, a run block grade of 75.1, a rushing grade of 61.3, a pass block grade of 89.5, and a receiving grade of 52.3. He only had 2 rushes on the year for 4 yards. Very small sample size there. And he only had 2 receptions for 24 yards. But taking a look at his snaps by alignment, he took 167 snaps in the backfield compared to 45 inline snaps, 27 slot snaps, and 20 snaps out wide. So Buffalo moved him around a little bit, but he's mostly going to be that fullback out of the backfield in that I formation I would foresee for the Patriots. And as I said before, 6 seasons in Buffalo, he was actually the only running back / fullback to be top 10 in both run block grade as well as pass block grade. So this is someone who is very productive in protecting his quarterback as well as protecting his running backs in the run game. He was actually number 1 in pass block grade. So this is someone who you might even see in on some passing downs to protect Drake May, as well as number 8 in run block grading. So someone who's going to be very productive for you and really is going to help set up this Patriots run game. And I really just like the fact that they got themselves a fullback that they can trust, especially one who's this productive from a blocking standpoint. Is only going to help these backs continue their positive momentum and just getting these backs in favorable spots where they can get past the line of scrimmage, because they both make plays once they're not tackled in the backfield, especially with Travion Henderson's explosiveness. Give him any little bit of leeway with good blocking, and he has the chance to take it all the way. And we know how Dre really likes to punish these defenses and kind of finish out these games for the Patriots in the run game. So hopefully that's going to be something that really translates over, and Gilliam is certainly going to help spark this Patriots run game. Moving over to the defensive side of the ball here, the Patriots signed defensive end Dramont Jones to a 3-year, $36.5 million contract, with around 23 of that $36.5 million being in guaranteed money. And Dramont Jones actually played with both the Titans and the Ravens last year. And one thing that I was really impressed with was him getting to the quarterback at a consistent rate, especially in Baltimore, considering the fact that they actually ranked 31st in pressure. So I'm sure that he only helped that pressure rate go up when he was traded to Baltimore. And they really struggled to get to the quarterback without blitzing. And he really was, besides Travis Jones, the one guy who could actually get to the quarterback on Baltimore last season consistently for them. And poaching him away from Baltimore certainly helps. But taking a look at his 2025 grades, he had a defensive grade of 64.7, a run defense grade of 57.8, a pass rush grade of 69.6, tackling grade of 63.8, and a coverage grade of 55.3. Came up with 21 tackles last season, 28 hurries, 15 quarterback hits, 8 sacks, 20 defensive stops, and only had a missed tackle rate of around 8%. And he's someone who's really just going to play exclusively on the line of scrimmage. He could play both inside and outside, but I would expect the Patriots to really use him on that edge position, especially with K'Lavon Chaisson leaving in free agency. This is the guy who I would expect to kind of outperform Chaisson in the role that he is required. Chaisson played very well for you last year, but Dramont Jones is just simply a more talented pass rusher. And when you're pairing him next to a better interior pass rush duo like Barmore and Milton Williams were for the Patriots last year, this is a guy who I expect to have a breakout season for the Patriots on the edge, just because all the amount of pressure and time that has to really be alluded to that interior pass rush. This is someone who's going to be able to go one-on-one with a lot of tackles, and especially considering the fact that he mostly lines up on the right side, he's going to be able to take advantage of some of those right tackles and get to the quarterback at a consistent rate here. So I really do like this signing for the Patriots, especially at a position that they kind of need a little bit of help in, especially with Chaisson leaving. I'm not sure how much you can really rely on Harold Landry, especially considering the fact that he really fell off in the back end of the season last year. Not sure if it was just the usage or if it was an injury standpoint, but signing Jones to this deal is certainly going to help the Patriots get more pressure on the quarterback and consistently on the edge, because a lot of their pressure last year came from the interior. So the more help that you can get on the edge is going to help alleviate the pressure and take some of that pressure off the interior of this pass rush. And sticking with this edge system here, the Patriots signed edge player Jesse Luketa to a 1-year, $1.1 million contract. And he was injured for the most part last year, but he was also on the Rams practice squad. Never really got elevated. So taking a look at his last full season in the NFL, 2024 with the Arizona Cardinals, he had a defensive grade of 70, a very nice run defense grade of 84.2, a pass rush grade of 56.8, a tackling grade of 55.8, and a coverage grade of 51.2. Very similar to Jones, someone who's really going to play on the line of scrimmage, not really be using anywhere elsewhere. He came up with 12 tackles, 4 hurries, 1 QB hit, had a career-high 3 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 12 defensive stops, and a missed tackle rate of 11%. And I really expect this guy to be a run defender, run support type player on the early down so you can put on the edge. Very similar to Anthony Jennings. And to be honest, I would have preferred keeping Anthony Jennings, just considering the money and stuff like that, However, you get someone on a cheap contract here who's going to play that role pretty well. And the reason why I like Jennings is because he really was developing as a pass rusher towards the end of the season. However, if you do want to counter me in that category, Lukita certainly started rushing the passer a lot better towards the later end of his 2024 season. So maybe the Patriots are hoping they can kind of unlock a little bit of a higher upside there with Lukita than compared to Jennings. But this is your prototypical Anthony Jennings replacement, kind of that linebacker slash as present who's going to be on the field for early downs and really help out in the run support game. And speaking of run support, we're going to move on to the next signing, which was linebacker KJ Britt on a one-year deal. The contract information hasn't fully been released yet, but I expect it to kind of be a little bit of a minimum deal here. So during the 2025 campaign, I believe he actually also played with the Dolphins, very similar to Julian Hill. Came up with a defensive grade of 58.7, run defense grade of 79.2, tackling grade of 74.8, pass rush grade of 48.5, and a coverage grade of 44.6. Came up with 14 tackles on the year. He was targeted 8 times, allowed 7 receptions for around a 87% reception rate. And during those receptions, he gave up 51 yards and a touchdown. He only had a missed tackle rate of 8%, and he had 8 defensive stops. And taking a look at his snaps by alignment, really more a box player and really played exclusively in the box, where he took 141 linebacker snaps there. So someone who really is not going to be a huge proponent on your defense. This was more so a special team signing, where you take a look at his special team snaps, which was 334 total snaps on the special team side of the ball. So 5-year career, 102 tackles in his career, mostly going to be a special teams player, but does give the Patriots a little bit of depth at the linebacker position, considering that Jack Gibbons also has departed now, I believe actually to the Arizona Cardinals. So get a little bit of depth at that position. He does have 2 career sacks, but he kind of is who he is at this point, and someone who's really going to do the majority of his work on special teams. So unless the Patriots really unlock something with him in terms of his run support as a linebacker, expect this to be more so a special team signing. Well, moving on, the Patriots signed former All-Pro safety Kevin Byard to a 1-year, $9 million contract, with $6 million of that $9 million being in guaranteed money. He reunites with Mike Vrabel, of course played with Vrabel for a number of seasons in Tennessee. And Kevin Byard, this is one of the best value contracts in the NFL, especially if he's able to continue his production. And there's no reason why he shouldn't. Mike Vrabel knows how to use this guy. And Byard debatably had his best season under Mike Vrabel in the 2021 campaign. But taking a look at his 2025 season with the Chicago Bears, he had a defensive grade of 75.4, coverage grade of 71.6, tackling grade of 71, run defense grade of 82.6, and a pass rush grade of 49. He came up with 77 total tackles. He was targeted 38 times in coverage, allowed 28 receptions for a reception rate of around 74%. He had 2 pass breakups, 7 interceptions, a missed tackle rate of 11%, and allowed 331 total yards in coverage. And that was all in a 32 age season right there. And he was awarded a first-team All-Pro from the safety position. Once again, the 3rd time in his career. And taking a look at his snaps by alignment, he really was used more so as that kind of deep safety in Chicago. Took 907 free safety snaps, took 210 box snaps, and 75 slot snaps. Where you compare it to his 2021 season, where Mike Vrabel used him at the free safety position for 603 snaps, 331 box snaps, and 161 slot snaps. So Vrabel does like to keep him closer to the line of scrimmage compared to Chicago. However, I'd still say the majority of his snaps are going to be from that deep safety position. And I'm wondering if his age is going to factor into just playing more so kind of that deep safety role. Very similar to how kind of Devin McCourty was used in his final years with the Patriots. Not around the line of scrimmage very often. More so kind of used as that guy you just put back deep, really prevent any deep ball. But a 10-year career for Kevin Byard here. 6 seasons under Vrabel and Tennessee. Like I said before, 3-time All-Pro. Safety who's very versatile, has great ball hawk skills, came up with 38 career pass breakups as well as 37 career interceptions. So this is certainly an area where the Patriots are going to be able to kind of take advantage of, which was turnovers. And we saw during their playoff run how crucial turnovers are on the defensive end. And this is certainly someone who's going to be able to gamble and take some chances, especially with the secondary that the Patriots have. he's going to be in a position where he can really gamble and create a lot of turnovers for this Patriots defense here. So very good signing here. A very good value contract too. 1 year on a older type player, but someone who has proven himself in this league, has familiarity with the coaching staff, and especially this kind of defensive scheme. So I would expect Kevin Byard to be one of the better signings in the NFL during this entire offseason. But the last player we're going to cover here in this video is safety Mike Brown. The Patriots signed him to a 1 year, $1.3 million contract with $50K being guaranteed. And I believe Mike Brown actually played for Vrabel in his last season in Tennessee, that being 2023. And taking a look at his defensive grade for the 2023 campaign, he had a 60.3 defensive grade, coverage grade of 58.7, tackling grade of 84.4, a run defense grade of 76, and a pass rush grade of 59.1. He had 6 tackles on the year, targeted 4 times, allowed 4 receptions, 1 pass breakup, did not miss a tackle, so a very sure tackler, and allowed a total of 43 yards. He's more so kind of a special teams type player, going to add a little bit of safety depth, but only took 113 defensive snaps under Vrabel compared to 149 special team snaps. So this is more so a depth signing as well as special teams. So I wouldn't expect a ton of defensive snaps whatsoever for Mike Brown. But familiarity with the coaching staff and scheme, clearly they liked him, and especially considering the fact that he's an undrafted rookie at the time, he must have worked his way and played very well under Vrabel. So hopefully that's going to continue here in New England. So in wrapping up this video, I kind of want to talk about the departures that the Patriots suffered. And of course, I think the biggest of the offseason is by far Stephon Diggs, your most productive receiver for you last year at a 1,000-yard campaign. Someone who really came in and kind of shaped your wide receiver room from a culture standpoint, got guys on track. You saw Kayshon Boutte play a lot better. Pop Douglas, even though he had some reduced playing times, felt like he made some veteran-type plays. And Stephon Diggs certainly brought a little bit of that winning attitude. Certainly going to be a big-time loss for you. However, they do kind of make up for it with Romeo Doubs, and I think that Romeo Doubs has all the tools to replicate what Stephon Diggs does. He's probably not going to be as cunning or as savvy in terms of getting into the open spots against zone coverage as Stephon Diggs was. So Diggs is certainly going to be a huge loss for the Patriots, especially with the chemistry that he showed with Drake May. However, I think that they address this category and even a little further if they end up trading for a true wide receiver number 1. And especially with the cap hit that Stephon Diggs would have hit the Patriots with if they picked up his second-year option. I think that it was well worth releasing him at this point. Not to say that he had any bad parts of last year whatsoever, and he really was nothing but a positive, but unfortunately, I think the cap hit is just too high, and especially with them signing Romeo Doubs, you don't want to spend $20+ million on an aging receiver 2 years coming off a torn ACL, however productive he was for you last year. It's an unfortunate departure, but I think it was a necessary one. Moving on to center, Garrett Bradbury. It's unfortunate when you lose a starter. However, when you have a plan to move Jared Wilson back over to his natural college position, I think that this is a good move, just getting whatever you can for Garrett Bradbury. I believe that they got a 5th rounder back from Chicago. So you do lose 2 offensive starters for you last year. However, you're kind of gaining a starter in both those areas. So you kind of do make up for each of those departures. And take a look at Vidarian Lowe here, your backup tackle. I think that he actually signed with the Niners. This is a little bit of a depth piece for you. Of course, you have your 2 starting left tackles, but now you kind of have to have that swing tackle behind them. And Vidarian Lowe was your backup left tackle, which is still a very valuable position for the Patriots. So they are going to have to address that spot, especially with Will Campbell having that late season injury last year, lower body. Maybe that kind of re-aggravates at some point during this season. So I think that's something that you have to be prepared for. And then, of course, Austin Hooper signing with the Falcons. And you address this issue with signing Julian Hill. However, he's certainly not the receiving threat that Austin Hooper was. He's probably a little bit better of a blocker. But just the depth at the tight end position, I would not be surprised if that is an area that is addressed through free agent signing or even through the draft. I think this year's tight end class in the draft has a lot of depth to it, so I would certainly like to see the Patriots kind of address that issue in the draft this season. Moving over to the defensive departures, I would say that you certainly took a lot more hits on the defensive side in terms of losses. I think the 2 biggest by far are your starters, K'Lavon Chaisson and someone who was a borderline starter but a very heavily utilized rotation piece along the defensive line in Khyiris Tonga. Losing both those guys are unfortunate. They kind of make up for the K'Lavon Chaisson departure with the signing of Jermont Jones. However, Khyiris Tonga leaving is a huge deal for the Patriots. He was so crucial for their run support, and he was someone who really spelled the interior of their pass rush, that being Milton Williams and Christian Barmore, and even played pretty well in terms of rushing the passer himself, when I specifically thought he was more so just going to be that kind of big-time nose tackle to really help in the run game. But him signing with the Kansas City Chiefs and Chaisson signing with the Commanders, like I said before, the Jones signing kind of makes up for the Chaisson loss, but the Tonga loss is a big deal for the Patriots, and that's certainly something that they're going to have to address through either more free agent signings or through the draft this season. But Anthony Jennings got released from the edge. They kind of addressed that with the signing of Lukita. Jelani Tavai, someone who's really in the linebacker rotation, saw his snap percentage drop throughout the season, so not a huge loss there. Jack Gibbons signing with the Arizona Cardinals, someone who played a pretty crucial part for your defense on the back end there, especially with Robert Spillane getting hurt. Unfortunate to lose him. And your linebacker depth kind of gets depleted there. And then your secondary depth a little bit more depleted with Alex Austin. Someone who was playing a lot during the first two games, however, struggled a little bit versus Miami, saw some playing time get lost, trade for Charles Woods, and he also got hurt. So really someone who struggled to really seal the field. And I really do like Alex Austin, so for me it's an unfortunate loss. However, the Patriots really were not utilizing him towards the back end of the season. So not a ton of massive departures from a defensive standpoint, but the Tonga loss and the Chaisson loss really is going to hurt this defense for a little bit, so they will have to make up for some of those losses through the draft or through some more free agent signings. All right, everyone, that's going to wrap up this video here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm going to continue to monitor the Patriots during this offseason, and especially with the draft coming up soon, I'll probably do some NFL draft prospect profiles here for you all. But thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.